Hi, good afternoon, Veronica and Soren. How are you guys today?
Very well, thanks.
Ah, yeah. Thank you. Very, really well.
How are things in Sweden these days? How is the weather today? In London, we always start by talking about the weather, always. As it's just a typical thing.
Yeah, we do the same. We do the same. Yeah, today is okay. I think it's supposed to be snow tomorrow, so very excited about that in April.
Snow in April, awesome.
Yeah,
It's a famous Swedish pre-spring weather. I think they actually call it the fifth season, right? Because
yeah.
I think it's 15 degrees out now, but today it's gonna snow, and then yeah, you never know
And
for
then
Thursday.
it'll go back. We had a similar thing last week. It actually snowed and went sunny on the very same day. It was snowing in the morning, and then later on in the afternoon, it was actually relatively warm. People were just out in t-shirts. Yeah, hilarious April weather. Great, thank you guys for joining us today. Really great to have you. Um, Working culture, at the end of the day, this is what we're here to talk about. What makes a great engineering working culture? But before we dive into that, I'd like you just to give our audience a little bit of an introduction. So if we can start with yourself, Veronica, tell us about Veronica. What, as a professional, who's Veronica? Feel free to add a few personal traits if you like. And what is it that you do at Kindred?
So I work together with Saran and other colleagues in our technical management team. I work as head of tech business delivery, so responsible for all the kind of key strategic technical initiatives that we have, delivering on those, as well as kind of compliance related items and integration of third party platforms towards our operational platform. So it's quite a broad span, I would say, of my team. I've worked in Kindred since 2012, and I think I've worked in
Wow.
every tech function. I worked in Søren's old function in dev for a while. I worked in QA for a while as a performance engineer. So I've had quite a different amount of roles within Kindred Tech, and I think that's quite beneficial for the position that I'm in now, where we work sort of across all of tech and across Kindred business as a whole. Um, and my background is in engineering, as I think most people in tech are. And I studied in the US for quite a number of years, worked there for a while, worked in Ireland for a while, and then landed back in good old Sweden.
So you moved back to Sweden with Kindred then?
No, so I worked in General Electric, moving back to Sweden, and then I started with different consulting companies, as I think Søren's background as well, as a consultant first at Kindred, and then moving into sort of a full time position after that as well.
Nice, nice. What about you, Soren?
So I'm Soren, head of development. So I lead and oversee the development function in Kindred Tech. So I'm also part of tech management as Veronica is. My department houses all of the testers and developers, most of the software engineers that we have in Kindred globally. We're a truly global function with teams from Sydney to soon to be the US and all of Europe in between. I've I started in Kindred in 2010, like Veronica said, as a consultant developer. Um, did a lot of coding and helped build our platform, and then gradually moved into to formal leadership and managerial roles, and been doing that since 2013 was my first official management role.
So you basically both of you started the early 2010s. Um, in your case, Soren, it's just over a decade. In your case, Veronica, just under a decade. So
Yeah.
you've probably seen the different phases
Yeah.
to Kindred over the years.
No, absolutely. I mean, when I started, what was then the platform team, basically most of the dev organization was, oh, it was basically one team, right? When the team got into some 20 odd people, we split it into two teams, as you naturally would have to do. And the ambition for this year is to be close to 500 people. So it's been quite a journey from 20 odd people to close to 500 this year.
So you went from 20 people. Now you are how many people at the moment?
430 maybe now.
Wow.
It's one of these numbers that vary on a daily basis with all the recruitment we're doing, but we hope to be 470, 480 at the end of the year.
Incredible, incredible. So yeah, quite a ride. I suppose that definitely will go into the questions about the culture, because that's not exactly a not even a 100% increase. What is that, like a 400-500% increase, or even more than that?
Yeah.
So okay, let's go straight into it then. Veronica, what in your expertise, your opinion, you've been a developer, you've been in tech pretty much all your professional life, you've seen different environments. What makes a great engineering culture?
It's a big question, million
Yeah,
dollar question.
yeah, it's the topic. So I mean, you can start by if you like, we can say what actually makes a bad engineering culture.
Yeah, I think we've all been part of that at some point in our careers. No, but I think, I mean, a great engineering culture, I think, is the ability to sort of keep that. I think quite often within tech, we talk about kind of startup mentality and the freedom that you have, sort of in a with a startup feel, the autonomy that you have as a team, and I think that's kind of within sort of great engineering culture, that's what you strive to have, even though you grow as a company, and even though kind of the challenges become larger and more and more teams and communication across teams and collaboration across teams. I think that's kind of the key item. How do you keep that sort of autonomy for the team, for them to be able to make decisions, to find solutions? And so I think, yeah, in terms of great engineering culture, that's kind of a key aspect of it, being able to maintain that and have that kind of thrive.
Why is it, Soren? Why is it very important to actually maintain freedom and autonomy? I mean, if as you grow,
Mm.
why why even keep that? Why can't we just say, okay, well, we have the senior management. They are probably more in touch with the executives. They're more in touch with the executives from the sales and marketing. They have better understanding of what the customer wants. So why do we need to have that kind of autonomy? Why can't it just be top down?
Well, I mean, you're right in one way, right? We trust our top level management to be very in tune with company strategies, but they are not the experts as at how we build systems. So we need to make sure that the experts on actually doing things, right? The super skilled doers who are the foundation of everything we build, the developers and testers and engineers, though they are the experts at building things, delivering things, doing it in the right way, doing it in the right order. We as managers need to sort of set visions and guidelines and strategies and roadmaps, but then let the individual developers and mainly the teams decide for themselves how do we best go about building this for not only this week, but for a slightly longer focus and future, but not over planning things to try to build something that lives forever. Because I think the team also needs them to have that holistic ownership over time so they can own and live with the products that they build.
So does this mean then, back to you, Veronica, in this case, does this mean that you were saying about the startup culture, for example, how they have the autonomy and the freedom? Does that mean this is the right working environment? Are we trying these days to replicate the startup environment in a large enterprise? Is that what we're supposed to do?
I think it's that balance that Søren talks about, right? I mean, as you grow, potentially sort of your solutions become more complex, your landscape becomes more complex. You have a bigger customer base. There's more things to consider, right? So you wouldn't be able to do it with kind of that really small startup, 5 people at a table anymore. So I think there's that balance of, you have to be able to have people that can kind of look long term, set visions and strategies, making sure we're moving in the right direction, but then also kind of keeping that autonomy and kind of creative spirit within individual teams to solve the problems the best they can. And I think that's, for sort of in terms of recruitment as well. I think that's kind of what you're striving for is finding all of those engineers that are creative and has a drive and want to find amazing solutions to the problems that they face on a daily basis. And that's how we move forward really quickly. If everyone's just doing the tasks that they're told, I think you're not, as a company, moving forward at the same speed.
So then, in this case, the freedom, the autonomy, the free working environment, basically, if you like, given to developers, is that something they need to kind of enforce for themselves? Do they just come in, okay, I can do whatever I like, or should there be an infrastructure for that? Does the company allow for that or not allow for that, if you know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, I think it has a lot to do. It depends on, of course, what sort of industry you're in and what the kind of boundaries are for the work that you do. But I think it has a lot to do with working on the tool set, supporting the engineers to be able to kind of have those great ideas and move forward at the pace that they want and be as autonomous as they want. But I think in most cases, and for us as well, we work within a set of boundaries, rules and regulation that I think any corporation has to kind of adhere to. And so you have to be able to have the freedom, but within that kind of boundaries, I guess that's.
So Soren, how are you guys doing it then? How do you? Let's talk about Kindred themselves. Let's put you guys under the spotlight here, under the microscope. How do you ensure that developers, engineers, the tech teams have that freedom and autonomy, and how much of it?
Yeah, looking back at the journey we've done, right, from 20 to 100 to 450 people, there are different steps along the way that you have to surpass, really. So a lot of it comes down to first of all, like Veronica said, having the proper tooling. There should be tooling to take care of all of the frustrations. Then we need to have if we look at it from different angles, one angle being managerial. For us, it's really key that we keep the flat culture. A company of our size and a department of my size, it's impossible to have it totally flat, right? Because every employee deserves a good managerial experience, which means that your first line manager cannot have too many direct reports, because then you wouldn't have any chance of doing training planning, career planning, all of that you as an employee deserve to have a really good experience with. So there is an unfortunate maybe need for hierarchies, but the idea is to make that of less importance than the actual working environment and the delivery. So we basically have a setup with fully autonomous development teams with, or rather we're pushing towards that, where the idea and the hope is to have most, if not all, of the skill sets needed embedded in the team. So the team then gets to decide how they work together with the product owner on what they work on with the right priority. Do they want to work with pair programming or mob programming or work from home programming, or however they best see they can as a team deliver things? They are fully empowered to decide that for themselves. Then, yes, we operate in a highly regulated environment, which means that there are some outside boundaries that we need to have in place. But our ambition with everything like that is that should be as hands-off as possible and solved by automated processes. Like there are regulations on how we can deploy code to production, so we solve that by having it 100% automated. So you basically click a button and then all of the bureaucratic process is handled for you by software systems rather than manual bureaucratic interventions.
So, would you say then that automation, is that the solution you guys have arrived to solve efficiency and ensure that everything is working properly because you are in a regulated environment? Or do you think that's something that all organizations, all types of organizations could benefit from?
I think it's more general than that. I mean, we piggyback on that good solution for regulatory reasons, but we would have done it anyways. We do like 12,000 production releases per year, and that's simply not doable if there is a manual step where someone has to manually approve it and deploy it to production and manually do all that labor, right? So it's all dealt with by tooling. So I strongly believe that continuous integration, continuous deployment, all of that are good practices, solid foundations for proper software development, regardless of what kind of industry you live in.
Veronica, for Kindred at the moment, right now, you guys, how, other than obviously the automation, how do you support your current engineers and the tech team to ensure that they have a great working culture? As we all know, talent is what makes up any organization. So you want to make sure that you retain your people. At circa 430 people, that's a lot of people to retain. There's a lot of effort. So what do you guys do so well that will help you, or that does help you, retain those people and will help you obviously add to that by the end of the year?
Yeah, I think it's many levels, but I think kind of the key ingredient is really listening to the engineers. What is working, what is not working, what can we improve? But also, I mean, we have had over the years, I think, Dare to Try kind of a million different types of forums. We had at one point, I think, kind of sort of a Java forum, a book club. There's been different kinds of forums, but sort of driven by the teams and the engineers themselves to sort of align across and learn from each other. We also have sort of geek sessions, kind of just promoting knowledge sharing across different teams, learning from each other. If that team did something really awesome or implementing something really cool, maybe we can do it in our team as well. So not this kind of top-down approach that someone's telling you have to do it in a certain way, but sort of horizontal learning from each other, kind of promoting that aspect of it. And then just in general, I think, we have quite strong values within Kindred. I think we focus quite a lot on we dare to challenge and we seek to innovate. So trying to encourage the teams to really live those values and what it means for them. So I think it's on sort of many levels to sort of work with the culture that we have.
And if I can just add to that, I think also one key ingredient is to fail fast, because I mean, we have had some probably rubbish ideas implemented over the years where it looked so good on paper, we tried it out, and the feedback from the engineers was that they hated it. And then you have to immediately be courageous enough to just kill it. That I think is one of the dare to challenge, but also dare to make mistakes and admit to your failures and then try to do better.
And you had a question before as well in regards to kind of sort of why we can't just do kind of top down on the top we make decisions and then somehow it gets implemented. But I think we have a good example of that kind of leading to how we work today and the culture that we have today, where there were a few engineers that kind of just challenged one little item in our ways of working. There was a handover between one team to another. And they were just asking why do we need to do this? Is it some regulation that says we need to do it, or can we remove this? And I think it's those sort of small things or challenging, well, we have this new tool, can we use it in a different way? Can we, and that does not come from me or Sarah. That comes from the people in the team with great ideas. And I think that's coming back to that sort of, we have to listen to those great ideas. I mean, if we're not listening, then of course it adds no value, right? So it's,
So here's a question to you both then. Here's a question to you both as senior members of the tech team, on the management team, how do you ensure that this autonomy, this creativity that you, or the freedom to be creative that you allow your teams, doesn't clash with efficiency and deadlines? That if they need to we have a deadline we've got to meet, but at the same time we kind of need to be creative. What's the balance? How do you guys ensure you're not delayed, you're not failing, basically?
Yeah, I mean, it's like you rightly say, it's a balance, right? There is no one way of doing it. You have to constantly balance the delivery time versus what you're working on and how you're working on it. I think that the way we generally address it is having business owners working really closely with the teams and product owners, understanding their day-to-day, understanding what's on their roadmaps, understanding what's on the backlogs. Basically a bit of stakeholder management, right? If you as a stakeholder understands that this cannot happen by this date, there's no real point in trying to make deadlines for it. But also in the cases where a deadline is absolutely necessary, because there are clearly such cases, right? Like a new law passes, you have to be compliant before it, or if in our industry, when the Euro in the football starts, we need to be ready for it. If we're delayed 3 weeks, all that work is pointless because the event has passed. So in those cases, it's absolutely critical that the entire company understands that we need to then make other sacrifices. You can't just enforce deadlines without seeing the holistic view.
On the note of striking the balance, okay, so do you at the moment, how do you empower those teams? So if a team, you're trying to promote creativity, but at the same time you don't want to bring a top-down approach, but you want to make sure the balance is right. Do you empower from within? Do you say, okay, well, each team will have one of the most senior members, for example, you're looking after ensuring things are done properly? Do you do that, or do you simply bring in one of the more senior members to come in to manage each team? What I'm trying to say is, if I can perhaps rephrase it better, is do you promote from within the team itself, or do they feel that they have a say? As they work within the company, do they have a say later on, or do they feel like, no, this always comes from the top management, they would be the ones to select? If that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, our job, I think, as the senior leadership team is also a lot about shielding the teams from those kind of outside priorities. So basically, you want the overarching company priorities to be handled without affecting the development teams. They shouldn't have to fight for everything that they have on their agenda, that they have on the backlog. You want them to freely work inside the remit of their decisioning power. And then we set company strategies and have ways of dealing with conflicting priorities where all of those things are taken into consideration. And then looking at how we promote both. I mean, we have sort of a matrix-like functional organization, and the idea is to technically empower developers and testers inside the teams to make decisions locally inside the teams for what they do, and then they have line managers on the other vertical trying to work with career planning and training planning and vacation planning and all of those kind of managerial and I would say that a lot of that recruitment is done from within, certainly.
Going back to you, Veronica, then I'd like to point to you. You said the dare to challenge and seek to innovate. You mentioned that this is, what you guys, your motto, if you like, especially on the tech side. What have been the most successful challenges you've had where it was a team effort, it was a innovation from within?
Yeah, maybe Søren can pick some as well. But I mean, for me, something that really, really stands out is we had to do this was quite a number of years ago. So kind of highlights is the fact that we've been working in a similar way for quite a long time. We had to do a database migration where generally in most companies you would sort of take down the site, do the migration, and up you go.
The
But
standard procedure usually.
yeah, standard procedure usually. But I mean, I think that the sort of general feeling in Kindred is that we have really smart people, so we should be able to do this without taking the site down, and also that we have kind of we work a little bit with the sort of I don't know if you want to call them challenges, Sudden, but we had sort of someone set, kind of the operational manager set that we have zero planned downtime. We don't take the site down for anything. So find a solution. And I mean, there were so many teams involved, and there was a solution found, and it was done, without any problems. And I think it just kind of shows that you can solve any problem. Just because you normally do it in a certain way doesn't mean you always have to. And I think when that kind of culture is there to sort of facilitate, and sort of the tech organization is saying, find another way, be creative here. What can we do as a team? How can we do this in a different way to have, sort of a good customer experience? I think that it's quite inspiring. And for me, that's one of those sort of key things that sticks out as quite different, I think.
So if I'm guessing we can't really dig down too deep here, but at least overarching view, what was that solution like? How did you manage to keep the site running 24/7 without taking it down? Yeah, what was the solution here? If you could give me like just a bit of an overview at least, either Veronica or Søren.
Do you want to go into more detail, Søren?
No, we can do it.
Remember, I don't remember all the steps. This was quite a number of years ago. I don't remember all the steps. I think there was like a 5 or 6 step process for how they actually did this, and having both databases running at the same time, and sort of slowly kind of migrating things over. Yeah.
So how would that have worked? This is going to be the big question then. Would that have worked, would you say, if you didn't have the culture that you had currently or at the time at Kindred? If you're telling me you have the great working culture, the team empowerment, the freedom, the autonomy, the open lines of communication, would that have worked? Would you have arrived at that solution if you didn't have that?
No, I don't think so, and a lot because of the fact that this wasn't, like Veronica said, wasn't really driven from higher level management point of view. This was sort of a team saying that no, we can do better. We really don't want to shut the site down for this. There must be a solution for it. So it turned into, like you said, Veronica, into this excited challenge of let's see if this can be doable. And I think that then is so ingrained in how we work today, and looking at the number of releases we do, looking at always trying to automate. I mean, we're now in a position where we, regardless of load, regardless of critical business events, we do releases, right? We do releases all the time because we think it's the right thing to do. We don't want code on the shelf, right? You don't want software that just sits around and wait. If you have built something, it should go into production, and that mindset is. I mean, this was one of the foundation points for it, I think, really. But it also showed that this can be doable on these super highly difficult places. So why shouldn't we be able to do it for everything?
Of course. So, potentially one of the biggest challenges humanity has ever faced, the pandemic we're still going through right now. How have you guys fared with that? Because if there has ever been a big test for any company's working culture, especially of your size, it would be this.
Yeah, I think we were not prepared, but fairly, we had some infrastructure in place to be able to manage this because we are, like Søren said, we are a global company. So we do, use communication tools on a daily basis, even if we were to be in the office, right? Because you communicate with people across the globe continuously. So I think from that perspective, we were in a maybe better position than some other companies. But then I think in general, it's and the social aspect of it is challenging for anyone. Not being able to kind of have that coffee machine talk or water cooler talk that you might just have. So finding new ways of communicating, of connecting with each other. I think that's probably the same challenge for us as for any company.
So was it then business as usual in this case? Other than the social aspect of things, was it always business as usual? Was business not interrupted? Were you carrying on normally, smoothly?
Yeah, we were. I mean, we were really good at shifting from everyone working in the office to everyone working at home in a matter of days, really. But I think that what also is key in that is employee mental health and well-being. And this is where the employee experience of your manager comes in, right? You in an office setting, it's much easier for a manager to check in daily or regularly with your employees. It's not as simple in a working from home situation, which means that it's so much more work, actual work, for managers to reach out to everyone and ensuring that, because something like COVID affects people extremely differently. For some, it's like not that much of a deal. For someone, it's really taking a toll on their well-being. And here is where we, I think, as a company, have obligation towards our employee to really give them that support that is needed throughout this.
So then, and I will go back to the mental health side as well, by the way. I will touch upon that as well in a second. But for you guys then going forward, do you see yourselves that the offices might not be as needed as they were? So post-COVID, do you still see remote working being something that you guys will utilize mostly? Or will we know we're going to go back to business as usual where people will need to come back to the office if they can, etc.?
I think it's going to be a combination. And we've always had remote working even before COVID. I mean, working globally and people have families and lives to be able to cater to. So we've always had people, maybe working a day a week from home or, things like that. And I think most probably after COVID, there are some people that are very comfortable with this and this is a better setup and they might work a little bit more from home. And some people that are really, really looking forward to going back into the office and meeting people, and they'll be able to do that. So I think it'll definitely be a combination of the two going forward as well.
Will there be, because the flexibility of being, working from home, that's fantastic. And I think everybody's going to go in that direction now post-COVID. But given the size of Kindred and your reach and how global you are as an organization, will employees, for example, or do they have the option, in fact, to be able to be based anywhere remotely and simply carry on with their work?
And that's a really interesting question, and I think that there are so many aspects to it. From making sure you can do your job point of view, we definitely allow people to work from where they live, but then you have to add tax situation and you have to add the legal situation and regulatory and so on. So in our industry, I don't think we will ever be in a place where everyone can work from whatever country they choose. I don't think, to be honest, that will ever be possible for any company. I think there has been a lot of talk about, work for us, you can work from wherever. I think that what you miss then is the fact that you need a work visa to work from many countries. So unless you're a resident in the country you want to work for, you're probably not allowed to.
Now upon, one of the last points, or probably the last point I really want to touch upon, and not to really kind of, blow Kindred's trumpet, if the term is the right to use. But mental health, in all the research that we've done, people we've spoken with, any company, there's always the positive and negative reviews in general. That's a common thing. But what's very, very, very common among many people is positive experience of how Kindred deals with mental health. What is it that you guys do? I really want to know, what is it that you guys do that makes people speak highly of that? Veronica, we can start with yourself if you like, and then we can move to Soren, or vice versa. Doesn't matter.
You can start, Veronica.
Yeah, I mean, I think, since I started in 2012, it's been a topic on the table. And I think, sort of understanding that our people are our, main asset. It's what makes the company. Yeah, if we don't have a workforce that's happy and healthy, then we have nothing, right? So I think it's always been a topic of conversation. We've worked on it in many different forms. We've had throughout the years different speakers coming in on stress, on anxiety. We've had, like lots of different sort of external parties coming into different offices and doing presentations and awareness months and things like that. So it's been kind of a focus for a very long time. And I think also within our management staff, it's a big topic to ensure that everyone gets the same experience, basically the same managerial experience, regardless of what manager you have. There's sort of a set of criteria for how your experience should be as an employee. So I think, yeah, a lot of focus.
And it's also something that is really ingrained in. I mean, work-life balance is something that is not just words, right? It's if you look at our top-level executive management, work-life balance is something they live and breathe every day themselves. So the culture comes from within, and it has been like that for a number of years. And then adding on to work-life balance with actually looking at workplace mental health and outside work mental health, and really not only talking about it, but we've done surveys over the years where we see that stress levels are getting high, then we action it. We really make sure to do some proper changes then into what is causing this sudden burst of stress. Are we committing to too much? Are we doing too many things at the same time? And then there is a clear alignment across everyone that, okay, stress is really bad. It's not going to lead to sustainable long-term delivery. So we need to action it immediately and reduce stress levels to be able to continue.
Awesome. So I'd like to end then by now. I'd like to end by giving both of you a platform to just tell me the one thing you've learned over the years in your own experience, whether it's at Kindred, whether it's out of Kindred, that contributes, and other than obviously just the autonomy and the freedom, something specific that contributes towards that great engineering working culture, specifically from a developer's point of view, obviously. Veronica, we'll start with you.
Okay. Yeah, the one thing that I've learned over the years, I think it really comes down to that sort of team culture, how you work within the team, how you like collaboration and communication within the teams. That's really kind of the key. If you can get the teams to have sort of a great team culture, then people are happy coming to work. They're more productive, more creative, and that sort of fosters a great engineering culture. I think it has to come from within the teams, and for us just to kind of support that with whatever's needed to be able to have the teams to kind of drive that themselves.
So give the developers the platform to voice their opinions at what they want. Soren, what about you?
For me, it's to never ever underestimate the creativity and the amazing things that can be built by highly functioning teams. Making sure then that we allow those teams to really get both empowered but also passionate about what they are working on. So they understand, they have a sense of purpose, but they also have the freedom and empowerment to actually be creative towards it. Making sure that all managers fully understand that their purpose is all about empowering engineers and teams, making sure that their path is as free of obstacles as possible, because it's going to be a force of nature when you get it right.
Fantastic, fantastic. Soren, Veronica, thank you guys very much for joining us today. We've definitely discussed quite a few things. Interesting actually to know as well, because in our experience here in the community, we speak to a lot of different companies, primarily startups, but even the larger ones that we speak with. Working culture has always been something that they talk about. But when it comes to really questioning on how things are being practiced, you start to think, it's probably not being put into practice. But it's great to see that you guys are doing that, which is fantastic. And that's not just from here. This is also from anybody who wants to do research, they can go onto Glassdoor or any other platform, and the people's reviews speak for themselves. So thank you guys very much once again. It was great having you on our podcast, and I wish you a lovely rest of the day.
Thank you so much.
Thanks. Same to you.